Thank you for listening to this episode. Make sure you come back for the next episode covering the points of this conversation.
And follow the podcast on social media by finding @PrestigiouSPod.
Follow me, Mr. Kent, at Mr. Chris R. Kent.
Follow me, Chris Beane, at Chris Beane Official.
Join our Discord for exclusive content and personal interactions.
And if you'd like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life, you can reach out to me, Chris Beane, on one of my social media platforms, or by emailing the podcast directly at prestigiousInitiative@gmail.com.
Lastly, sign up for our newsletter either through social media or on our website. This is the Prestigious Initiative, and I'm Chris Kent. Here with me today, I have a special treat for our listeners. I'm going to be turning the spotlight into our very own host, Mr. Chris Beane. Mr. Beane, pleasure to be here with you.
Yes, sir.
Now, if people have been paying attention to our social media or listening to a few episodes, we've teased and you've talked about a little bit already your idea of visionary goal setting. Can you share with the listeners kind of where this started, the inspiration, and where it evolved to? And if I'm not wrong, it kind of stemmed off of SMART goals.
Yeah, so goals, people have goals, but the unfortunate thing is people have goals, but there's some problems with them. Mainly SMART goals. People assume that that is the end-all be-all of goal setting. And unfortunately, there are some problems within the SMART goal system, the framework of that.
Okay. So how did you get from SMART goals to visionary goals?
After listening to many of our guests and thinking through these processes of how goals in my eyes should work, or from what I'm learning either from reading or listening, how people should interact with goals, there's some downfalls with them. Like, one of them would be people have goals, but they have them and they're not working to achieve them. So they have this goal, it's written down, maybe it's on their bathroom mirror, they see it every day, but they're not doing anything to make that happen. They think just because, I have the goal, I wrote it down, I put it somewhere where I'm going to see it, it's going to magically manifest itself, and I'm going to achieve that thing and be that thing that I want to be without actually putting any work into it, which is not necessarily how it goes. And really with that, people set the goals and then they forget about them. And because they forget about them, nobody works on achieving those goals.
I see. So let's just break it down before we talk anymore. What is visionary?
Right. So visionary goals, like SMART goals, is an acronym where V is visualize success. I is integrate values. S is for set your why. I is for instill affirmations. O is organize daily practices. N is navigate weekly check-ins. A is anticipate obstacles. R is reveal comfort zone stretching. And then Y is yield to adaptability.
Very good. And what are some of the key components of this framework, and how do you think that differs from like traditional approaches with keeping an individual's true passions kind of in mind?
Yeah, I think that stems from their values. And I probably should define what I mean by values, and longtime listeners would know, but values, as what most people think of values, are honesty, integrity, and those kind of things. And to me, those are more morals or laws, perhaps, that you want to live by, not necessarily values. Values, to me, are things that I value in life. Values would be things like, you value spending time with your family. You value being a parent. You are a worker. Kind of thinking about them as far as the different the different hats that you wear throughout the day or the week or the year. That is how I think about values. And because this system is based on values, what that means is these goals are not somebody else's goals. They're not societal norms, things that somebody else says that I want or I should want, but they're actually linked to what I want because they're linked to the things that I value, the different things that I do throughout my day. And I think that probably is one of the most, if not the most important contributing factors to visionary goals.
Yeah. And, and the question I asked was, how does this differ from traditional kind of goal setting, and how does it stay true to one's passions. Like you said, if your values defined that way is at the center of this goal setting, then of course everything that you do is going to help push you toward the thing you're passionate about, how the thing that is going to be important in your life, and what matters to you most. And so having that value as a foundation, I think, is huge. And like you said, sometimes our goals can be set on intrinsic, extrinsic things outside of us, things outside of our world that aren't necessarily important to us, but we're just told they're important to us. But by basing the foundation on these things, I can see how that would help to really center your goals around what's important to you and what you value in your life. Very good. So I'm wondering how. So obviously, we know that you are a martial arts teacher, martial arts coach, martial arts instructor, and you've had some experience in the podcasting world as well. How much do you think that kind of influenced the development of this visionary framework?
Good question. I would say a fair bit, a large amount. Through my time meeting with guests, thinking of these key these key motivational or self-improvement topics, both in the realm of where I'm talking about them or sharing those ideas with the guests or with the listeners, or as I'm at my quote unquote day job, as I'm teaching my students. And it's more about just the kicks and punches. We're instilling those life values for them as well. And so in my time of doing those things, I've cobbled together bits and pieces of this framework and let them kind of sit and rest in my mind and have background work going on to connect the dots in order to build this type of system. So in my time meeting with the guests and thinking about how they interact with their world and how I can help to pull out the key concepts and ideas that they're doing to benefit our listeners, and my daily practice of reading and learning on a continual basis, coupled with sharing those ideas and values with my students in the martial arts realm, that's where the kind of foundation of where this came from.
And it sounds like adopting this framework, this visionary goal, has been something that you've done practically. Meaning, it wasn't something you sat down one day and said, "Oh, this is a great idea. Let me just write all this up." But it seems to be based off of, as you just said, your experience, previous conversations, studying, learning, and an actual practice through it. And so, can you walk us through some practical applications of the visionary goal setting framework? And have you seen notable success or transformation resulting from this approach?
Yeah, so let's bring it right from the beginning. You want to visualize success. So whatever that goal is, you want to visualize it. And not just in pictures, but as a mental movie in your mind. And you want to see it, smell it, taste it, get all of the sensors involved with it, because that's so much better than seeing the words written on your bathroom mirror. By the way, if that's what you're doing right now, I would advise perhaps moving that, because the problem is if we write that goal down and put it somewhere and it stays in that same place every day all the time, it becomes part of the background. You overlook it. Like, think about the pictures in your house. You don't stop and look at them and remember those fond memories. You probably did after, a week or so after you put them up there, but after years go by, it's just part of the wall. You don't look at it anymore. So visualize, and with that, bring all of your senses in and do that on a continual thing. Maybe it's once a week. You visualize what achieving that goal would be like. And then you want to integrate your values into that. So is this goal, the thing that you want, is it linked to a value that you have? And if it's not linked to a value, then okay, maybe you need to add a value, or think about maybe this isn't necessarily a goal that's a contributing factor for yourself. The next thing is to set your why. Okay, you visualize it, your values are lined up with it. Now, why? Why do you want to achieve this thing, whatever it is? What this will do is this will give you a motivation. This will give you a push to continue achieving whatever that goal is, because when it gets tough, and it will get tough because life happens, you will have a firm why. Why do I want to achieve this? Not I want this because everybody else wants it. I want the new car. I want this, $2 million. No, I want this because of the thing that it'll do for me. And you can visualize that. You see it, taste it, smell it. You're living in that visualization practice. Then you want to instill affirmations. For this, you want to come up with an affirmation that you would say to yourself that is linked to achieving that goal. For example, one that I have for myself and I have this linked to my values as well. So my values and the goals kind of line up, and it almost sort of teeters the line, becoming almost one and the same. One affirmation that I have go off on specific times. So I have a reminder on my phone that every weekday at 4:15, I have an alert that goes off on my phone that says, you're the best martial arts instructor in the world. And I look at that on my watch as I'm getting ready to teach class or just after classes started, depending on the day. And I look at that, I read it. Yep, that's right. Good. Boom. And maybe that's not the case. Maybe I'm not the best martial arts instructor in the world, and that's okay. But that's the affirmation that I have. And I put that into my routine on a specific time and a specific day so that that information is ready for me when it is most important. And then moving on, O is organized daily practices. These, I don't think of habits like most people think of habits, because habits, unfortunately, gets a connotation of being this magical mystery thing, right? I don't want that. Habits, to me, are something that I have to actually get up and do. And because it's something I have to get up and do, I think of them as practices. I'm practicing being that person that is living that dream out in that visualization. So what type of practices do I incorporate? Well, it's all linked from that visualization. What did that guy in that visualization do in order to achieve those things? What does he do now? And I try to link up and do those things now, because I know that inevitably that will put me on the path or keep me on the path to achieve those things that that person in that visualization had. The next one is navigate weekly check-ins. You want to be checking in on your progress. Are you hitting your margins? Are you doing the things that you want to be doing? Did you get off track? Is this actually something you still want? And in the process of doing that, it'll give you an opportunity to reflect on the past and to look at the future and make sure they are lined up and you're still on the path to achieve the thing that you want. And it gives you an opportunity to reflect and say, is this something that I actually still want? And if so, then you continue on. The next one is to anticipate obstacles. This one, I think, is something that is often overlooked in quote unquote traditional goal setting, but I think is hugely important. Because life, we all know that you have this vision of what your journey to this end, or this journey to your goal is going to be. And you think, okay, it's going to be tough. So it's going to be an uphill climb. But you think of you down here at the bottom of the hill, and then a smooth slope up to the top of the hill. And then there's like a checkered flag there where you've achieved the thing. Unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. You don't have just one smooth line. Granted, uphill, okay, it's going to be tough to get that, but it's not just one uphill. You have a up and then a down and an up and a down up, and you're moving upward in that trajectory the whole way, but it's not one smooth, easy way. There's obstacles that are going to come up. And if you do not have an opportunity to think or anticipate what those obstacles might be, when they inevitably happen, you won't know what to do to get back on track or to stay on track. And when that happens, you will fall off the wagon. You won't be on that path anymore. So to think about, and I'm sure, because we're humans and we can do very little, if anything, perfect, we can't come up with every single obstacle that's going to happen and a way around that. I understand that. However, if you can think about things that might happen, and then if those things that might happen do happen, you have a plan of action to get back on track to continue that upward trajectory. And if something happens that is not what you anticipated, okay, fine. Can any of those contingency plans that you thought about fit into this? If not, okay. But because you set your why and you have this link to a value and you're visualizing that success, that will give you an opportunity to get recalibrated and get back on track and move on despite that obstacle that happened. The next one is you want to reveal comfort zone stretching. Everybody is living inside of a bubble. And right outside that bubble is the things that you want. You can see them, other people have them, but you are often scared of pushing or stretching that zone, that bubble, to achieve that thing. If we can do that, it's tough, I understand. But if you can push yourself outside that comfort zone and achieve that thing that you want, see, if you set a goal for, let's say at your job, you get $50,000 a year, like your pre-programmed, that's what your contract says you're going to get, and you're going to get that in your 10 years. So you're going to get that pretty well, no matter what. You can't, it wouldn't help you to set a goal to earn $50,000 that year. That's not a goal. That's an inevitability. It's going to happen. Show up and just go through the motions. You want you want a goal that's going to stretch, that's going to push that bubble outside of what you currently have. So your goal should be tough. It should be something that you wouldn't otherwise have achieved unless you put the work in to achieve that thing. And the next thing is you want to be adaptable. Be adaptable in your approach. Be adaptable in your achievement of this goal. If things don't actually happen the way that you want them to happen, that's okay. Be moldable, and understand that, man, I want this goal, and I want to get it in 2 months. Okay, well, 2 months come by and you didn't get it. Okay, that's okay. But how much further along that path are you? Are you really close to achieving it? Yeah. Okay, good. Then keep going. It's okay to be adaptable. Don't set yourself inside of a box and think, man, I walked right up to the edge of that box and I pushed and it didn't go anywhere. I guess I'm done. I can't. And then you fall down. We're talking about moving up a mountain or a hill, upward climb. You get right up to the top. You're in that last push and you think, nope, I didn't get in the time frame. I'm done. And you just roll back down the hill. That's not what you want. Be adaptable. Understand that things are going to come up and you can't think of every potentiality that's going to happen. So be moldable and adaptable in your approach to setting and achieving these goals. Sorry, I talked for a while, but.
No, I think those are the practical applications of all the different steps and part of the visionary goal setting. And as you're talking, thinking about how we mentioned earlier, this differs from normal type of goal setting framework. This differs from what we're quote unquote told to do all the time, because I think it is a all encompassing kind of framework where you're thinking about, beforehand setting up the system, thinking about what could go wrong and planning for that, anticipating having to change the plan, having a growth mindset, developing the daily steps, developing the check-ins on your progress. Like, it's so all-encompassing, and I think all those practical steps are necessary to making the goal setting work. And it's something that maybe different systems are missing, that this one can implement and be beneficial. And as you're talking about it too, I'm trying to imagine just what kind of different mindset shifts or perspective shifts that this could help you to achieve. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. And, embarking on this visionary goal setting journey, when you start and as you start to implement it, what kind of perspective shift or mindset change can you expect with this framework?
Yeah, so I think that is linked to two steps. The visualize success step, and then the reveal comfort zone stretching. Because as you are visualizing that movie that you're going through, that you're playing out in your head, and it's as immersive as you can possibly be, the more immersive and real you make that visualization exercise, the better this is going to work for you. And if you link that with comfort zone stretching, so you don't think within inside of that cardboard box that we live in, but if you cut a hole inside and you actually look outside that cardboard box past what you would otherwise see, those two things will allow you to open up to the different possibilities that are there, because other people are doing them. And if other people are doing them, they're people, they have the same amount of time in the day as you have. Perhaps you can do something to line yourself up to achieve those type of things. And maybe you start that path and you realize, yeah, you know what, this changes my values. This sets me on a path that I don't actually want. Because you have the weekly check-ins, you get an opportunity to navigate that and see if that's something you actually want. And to answer your question, the mindset shift, I think, will happen if you can open your cardboard box, look outside of it, look outside past your comfort zone and visualize what that will be like, and think about how the day would go, how the week would go for that person who achieved those things. And then what are the steps you have to do in order to make that a reality?
And this transition, this mindset shift, or even just moving from traditional goal setting to this visionary goal setting, I can imagine that might not be easy. You might face some resistance in that journey. And so, how do you address challenges and skepticism from people who, are accustomed to conventional goal setting practices rather than visionary goals?
Yeah, I think the major thing for that is by asking the goal. Number one, okay, do you have goals right now? Yes. Okay, tell me what they are. And I would say most people probably would answer the first question, do I have goals? Yes. Okay, tell me what they are. I don't know. It's at home. It's written down. I can't remember right now. Or it would be something like that. And okay, let's say they could answer that. I have goals. Yes. Here's a definitive goal that I have. Okay, great. Does that line up with the person that you want to be? What do you mean? Well, does that line up with your values that you have? Well, what are values? And then go through that. I think by walking them through this, if they have goals, and maybe the goals they have is following this sort of ish format, this sort of ish framework, but maybe they're missing the affirmations part. I can't imagine explaining that to somebody and them not saying, oh yeah, that absolutely would be beneficial if I could have an affirmation that is linked to achieving this goal. Yeah, that would be good. And daily practices or habits. Okay, do your habits, and to use their language, do your habits line up with that goal? Are your habits helping you achieve that goal? Oh yeah, I could. I can't imagine much pushback on this framework. I think the pushback would come up because it is different than what other people think of when they think of goals. However, I have yet to share this with anybody and them say, yeah, I like SMART goals better. In fact, most of the time I share this with them, either they have already experienced SMART goals and they think, yeah, it's missing some things, or they don't know what SMART goals are, which is not most. But most of the time I share this with them, they're like, oh yeah, that fits the bill. That covers the areas where SMART goals are lacking. And I think, again, as we did today, going through the steps and stages of the visionary goal setting framework, it's clear that it covers all of the bases. And by all means, if I'm missing one, I would love to know, and I would love to, put that into the system because I am adaptable.
Very good. Now, you kind of already mentioned it here, and maybe there's not much more to say, but I'm just curious, as a leadership coach, how do you integrate the visionary goal setting framework into your sessions? I mean, does it complement other leadership development aspects? Does it complement personal growth? And how does it tie into your overall coaching experience?
Yeah. The key for this would be values. For values, bringing somebody through to establish what their values are. And by values, I mean my definition of values, meaning the things that they actually value. Bringing somebody through the stages to figure out what that is. And for those of you that don't know, that haven't heard this before, I'll just go through a real quick layout of how this works. For your values, you set the things that are most important to you, the different hats that you wear throughout the day. Okay, write those down. Maybe you got 7 of them. All right, great. Next step is to rank order that list. What is most important? What's second? And all the way down. And once you have that rank order list, put a why. Why is this value important? Why is this value important for each of them? And then you move on to the next one. Is you set an affirmation for each of those values, linked from the why, linked to the thing that you value from that ranked order list. And then to go to the last step is you make an affirmation that will, you make a reminder in your phone that'll give you that affirmation when that is most important. So I use the one for work. On the weekends, I have one that goes on Saturday morning. I think it's at 10, maybe it's 10:30, that says I'm the best father in the world. And I read that. Again, maybe that's not necessarily true, and that's okay. But I read that, and I can tell you that every time I read that, I feel as if I need to go and do something with or for my children. And then I go and do that. And so while it may be not true, I'm putting the steps in After I hear that, after I read that to myself, I say that because it says I am. That's part of an affirmation. It's an I am statement. I am the best father in the world. Okay, yeah, I am. Let me go prove that. And I think that as far as the coaching goes, walking somebody through the system to set their values is paramount and monumental in aligning that person with the type of person that they want to be. And then once you have your values, it is just a few short steps away to establishing what goals you want that are based upon those values.
And I specifically asked about leadership development and personal growth, but I can see how those would, the value, distilling your values, finding out what's important to you, and then developing those affirmations can help to reassure you. Because like you said, you tell yourself, hey, I am a charismatic leader. What do you want to do? Well, you want to go out and be a charismatic leader. And you say, hey, I am a hard worker. Well, what do you want to do? You want to start working hard. And so having that approach with the being able to develop your values and integrate that into your daily life, and then having those affirmations, I can see how that would lead to a positive change in leadership and just, personal life and things like that. So definitely that we're seeing the direct correlation of that.
Yeah, and like you said, it doesn't really matter, because if you are doing those values and you're setting it up the way that we're talking about, then whether it's a personal level or a what's the other, personal and leadership level, it doesn't matter, because if you're setting those values up, and if that leadership portion of your life is something that you actually value, then you're going to have a why for it, you're going to have an affirmation for it, and you're going to set a reminder for it. And so it doesn't matter where across the life that that you're living these things fall, because if you are doing those things, if you value those, then there's going to be a puzzle piece in this step to achieve more than what you are currently.
Yes, sir. So what do you think's next for your visionary goal setting framework? What do you think's next?
Yeah, well, the next thing is like what we're doing now is to be on podcasts and share this concept with others. I have done a couple already. The feedback that I've had has been largely beneficial. I haven't sat and talked with anybody about the visionary goal setting framework and they said, yeah, I don't like that. It's always almost unanimously, wow, yeah, that covers all the bases. And hearing that, of course, is definitely beneficial and motivates me to continue the path to share that with more people.
Yes, sir. And before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or key takeaways for our audience?
Whether you use the visionary goal setting framework or the SMART goals, or you have your own method for goal setting, I think it's important to have a direction that your life is heading. And hopefully that direction that the life is heading is not a horizontal or downward trajectory, but is an upward trajectory. And with that, you have to imagine and understand that upward trajectory is going to come with challenges. And we as humans were made to walk uphill. We're made to go through those challenging times. So despite whatever it is that you're going through, have a mission, have a goal that you're striving for, and make that goal an upward goal. Be willing to put the work in to achieve the things that you want.
Awesome. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you?
Well, you can listen to this podcast, the Proceed Us Initiative. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Threads and YouTube. On those, you can find me at Chris Beane Official. I do a daily video to help to motivate my listeners, my champions along their path.
Yes, sir. Huge thank you to Mr. Beane for sharing his visionary insights and empowering us all to dream bigger and aim higher. Stay tuned for more transformative conversations. Until next time, stay prestigious.